Hey, John.
Hey, Jeff.
Welcome back to the Common Gear podcast, commongear.com podcast. I always get the .com in there, but it is the premier destination for scanning, saving, storing vital records related to the maintenance and improvements of your collector and or specialty car, because even though you may not be selling it right now, you might be selling it someday. And when someday happens, having a digitized paper trail of all those records, we believe will drive a 10 to 20% increase in your sales price versus a similar car that does not have the same scale of records. Not only that, we're pleased to announce that if you do have a deep paper trail of a car that perhaps is worth a significant amount of money, something that you've spent 10 years restoring or 5 months restoring and now has a chance at netting you a fairly hefty premium, we will actually do all of that work for you. We'll come to your site where the car is. We'll do all the documentation on the premises, or you can send us a banker's box, similar style storage arrangement directly to us. We'll send you a FedEx label to ship it. We'll do all the scanning at our premises and then send all your records back to you. Whatever you prefer, we're happy to do it for a nominal fee. The storage is still free, as it's always been. So whatever your needs are, we encourage you to visit thecommongear.com to reach me, Jeff, at thecommongear.com with any questions about possible services or how ways we can help. With that being said, on this weekly podcast, we discuss vehicles of certain significance, either from the price they sold for, or their collectability, or their rarity, or just their wonkiness, that appear on the premier digital auction sites. So Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer are the ones we usually consider our suspects. And this week we're looking at Wagons. So Wagons, some people say Wagons are dead. I disagree. I think Wagons are still quite hot and will continue to be hot if they are the right spec and the right dose of rarity. So with all that being said, I'm going to stop talking, and John, I'm going to let you. I'll share my screen, but I'm going to let you
Sure.
take the first whack at some of the ones we've been looking at this week, and we're going to try
Yeah.
to blast through 4 cars as opposed to our normal 3 cars. We'll still try to keep it to half an hour, which I think we can do. So I'm going to start sharing,
All
and
right.
first I'm going to do the AMG is
Okay.
going to be our
Right.
first one. So let's share screen. Here we go. 2014 E63 AMG wagon, 577 horsepower. This one sold for just over 50,000. Go.
Great. So, as you mentioned, 2014 AMG E63 S wagon, 50K, which is actually cool because this is in my neck of the woods, not too far away over in Needham. So this was a
Oh
50,
yeah.
57,000 mile car. It's got the 7-speed automatic, all-wheel drive, the monster 577 horsepower turbo V8, the carbon ceramic brakes. It's finished in that very rare Designo Magno Elante gray. Um, it's a beast. It's a hoonable, bonkers, the Millennium Falcon of air quotes modern station wagons. These are the cool. I've always loved I love wagons, first off, but like a bonkers V8 wagon. Kudos to Mercedes for making this, selling it, and one hell of a deal on this car. This car went for 50,000 on Bring a Trailer today, actually. But if you look at the market, Jeff, I mean, this is kind of right in the ballpark, of where these cars kind of go. Looking at previous results on Bring a Trailer, one went last September 54, another one went for 49.7 back in 2021. And looking at Bring a Trailer quickly, of course, Bring a Trailer, I'm sure it went for a little bit more because they get we talk about the bat bump on occasion. Yeah, you're looking at minimum, high, mid fives, upper sixes for on a car and Bring a Trailer. But getting back to this car, I love it. I think these cars are fantastic. I thought the W212 platform is a really great platform. These are really kind of beautiful cars that kind of are the perfect, kind of old style, but also new at the same time as all the great features. Comments on this car were, all positive. If you looked at kind of the C&B peanut gallery on this one, everybody was like, this is a heck of a deal. This is a steal. This is a great car. Which is always good. When you get kind of that consensus of, hey, this was a great buy and this car is great, then I think everyone feels good about it.
Yeah. And it's interesting. The AMG brand has become so much more accessible, if you will. Like some might say they're watering it down a bit because there's so many models that are somewhat of just an AMG design exercise versus an actual high performance model. But I think the good news is for the second buyer of cars like these is that they're getting a phenomenal deal. Right, because there's this perception of saturation in the market, like, oh, well, I just saw this AMG and that AMG. I mean, I'm not among the enthusiast crowd. We tend to know what we're buying and what it's worth, but I think it helps that they don't feel quite as exclusive. I mean, just look at how many of these are cycling through Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer on a monthly basis. There's always an AMG wagon for sale, which is pretty amazing, especially given everyone kept saying the wagon was dead, and it seems like Mercedes has done a bang-up job of making sure that doesn't happen. And honestly, I mean, I agree with the peanut gallery in this one, that $50K for this car with a very reasonable, nominal mileage on it, and this is kind of hard to beat when you look at the utility for performance dollars. It's just an outstanding. And the other thing too, it is Mercedes really does load these things up with a lot of cutting edge tech. I would not want to be the fourth owner of one of these by any means. I have a friend with the previous generation AMG wagon that he sold as a consignment, and like one of the biggest things that like happened like just before the auction was the Alcantara headliner like disintegrated, like just fell apart, like just of the hot day, and he was driving the thing just like, and it was one of those things where the only way to put it back was total reconstruction. Like you couldn't just go out and have your upholstery guy like nip and tuck it. You had to tear it down, put it back, and rebuild it. So I mean, these are definitely they're high-end cars with high-end components, but I think at this point, when you're the second owner with low mileage and you're not heading, you're the first guy taking that depreciation hit, this is just such a bargain.
Jeff, what did these go for? What did these go for originally? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Let's see if this will get a window sticker.
I didn't get a chance to do the research.
So here we go.
Yeah. Okay, definitely.
So
for sure.
Very expensive car to buy new, and I mean that is I don't know if this is what did this say here about how many owners this car has had.
I want to say this is the second owner.
There's a Carfax.
But one thing you mentioned, I think you brought up a great point. You talked about kind of the oversaturation of AMG, and I was thinking like, we've talked about AMG in the past. I think you and I are both of that age where we still remember kind of 80s AMG, where it wasn't, it wasn't factory Mercedes. It was blessed by the factory, but it wasn't part of Mercedes. It almost was, if you were a BMW person, it'd be like going from like Alpina to an M to being the M brand, where it's full factory.
Yeah. So this car has had 4 previous owners. So that kind of worked against it a little bit, and it's now it's in Massachusetts after so I don't know if this was an auction car, perhaps, wholesaled out by a dealer. It's funny. Lars, our usual partner in crime, who's not here tonight, he was saying that the Ford dealership he works at, like if they get like they had a Viper there a few days ago, and he said those cars actually go straight to wholesale because it's such a pain in the ass to deal with them on like a traditional new car lot.
Absolutely. My father works at a dealership, and he tells a lot of the same stories where it's like, luckily they're part of a larger dealer group, so they could just send it to another dealer. Like I remember, I think I told you this, I talked about this story kind of, off camera maybe a few episodes ago, where he had someone come in and almost want to do a straight swap for his brand new Audi S8 for a Yukon, AT4, But so it's so, and I remember working at the dealership I worked at back in the day, a lot of those similar scenarios where you get a car and you're like, what the hell are we going to do with this? Unless it's something really different or it fits the season, that sort of thing. But one thing I want to jump back to this car quickly, and one thing I've always kind of loved, and there's one in the air. There's actually a Mercedes dealership, 2 towns over, next door to the dealership my father works at. Is that one thing I've always loved about these cars is that the front license plates are always off to the side, it's something that it's this little thing that always kills me. It's like they didn't think about, all right, hey, we got to make sure we put the license plate right, right in the middle. There's got to be a holder. This is no, this is a pure bonkers car. We're not even going to think about it. Yeah, maybe we'll put the plate there.
So I think this is one of those weird things that's happening in the car world where it's like the guys with the new Challengers are leaving the protective yellow tape on the front chin spoiler. So what they're doing is if the car shows up without the front bumper drilled for a plate bracket, you're taking some very smart guy made a business out of selling tow hook mountable license plate jack, whatever we're going to call them. So now it's become like this subtle little flex, let people know your front bumper has never been drilled for a license plate. It's kind of silly, I think, but yeah, I see this a lot now, and it started with a luxury car, now trickled down to guys who are driving around like beater E36 M3 that still have, mind you, all the holes drilled in the bumper, but they're still putting it on this thing over here just to flex like a guy actually has a $125,000 AMG wagon. So this is pretty great deal. Again, they will get costly to own over time, but I don't think you're really, if you're buying a $50,000 used wagon, you're not too worried about that.
No.
So all right, so that might be the deal of the day. Let's jump on to our next one, which is a total oddball. 1996 Volkswagen Golf Mark III chassis, Euro import. We never got the wagon, and it is the Henry Lloyd yachting edition. So I don't know. I suppose this makes you less of a waspy New Englander than I'd like to be. I don't know who Henry Lloyd is. I don't know a lot about the yachting world, but this reminds me of the Nautica edition Mercury Villager minivan. Sort of the same idea. I don't know that the yachting thing has ever worked out for any brand.
This is the Nautica version for VW bros.
Yeah, exactly. This is if you're a Euro snob on a budget, this is what you buy. So according to Doug DeMuro, his take on it notes that this yachting edition also included some special features. I don't know if they were tied to it, but you got the BBS wheels, roof rails, and AC. But I don't really know if anyone knows what the Volkswagen, their special editions, oftentimes it kind of, here, right here, unique front grille, front lift spoiler, roof spoiler. I suspect the upholstery was probably nominal, interesting as well. Now, it's fun thing about the spoiler is, as you know, John, my formidable high school years were spent with a Mark III Jetta. So this spoiler is just the standard, Euro. I think it's just a standard Euro spec. No, maybe not. I was going to say it looks like the standard Euro spec chin spoiler, which was a popular upgrade for us, USDM guys. But I'm looking at this and seeing this kind of little ridge here.
Yeah,
that actually is different because the Euro spec, like the GTI lower chin spoiler, was just like a solid. There wasn't this little divot, if you will. So maybe they really did make a unique front spoiler for the Henry Lloyd edition. And then I'm just going to take a quick peek at the interior to see if there's anything novel about the upholstery.
You're the resident VW guy here, so I was really, when I saw this, I really was interested to get your thoughts on it.
So real quick, now I don't know a lot about this yachting edition. So listen, I still have a very warm place in my heart for the Mark III. I think as it relates to Volkswagen, I think the Mark III is really underappreciated. And here's my thought on it. Everyone fawns over the Mark II, right? It's that was just peak Volkswagen. I understand why the Mark III didn't get much love, because it was heavier. It was not quite as just, it was like everything in this world, right? It hits its peak as sort of this young flirty thing, and then it gets more mature, and we are trying to go after a more sophisticated buyer because they actually have money. And so then in the process, we water the car down and we take away what made it fun. I mean, it's a transition that's as old as time at this point. But the thing that I feel like, I was talking with a friend about the 993 chassis 911, where they were saying like, yeah, but it's not that fast and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, but it's a 911 that you sitting here in 2023 can use it every day and not hate it. So that is what I like about the Mark III, is for right now where we are in history, that is still a comfortable car to use every day. Whereas a Mark II, you're going to be like, this thing feels like I'm in a match, like a literal matchbox box of matches with wheels on it. It's tinny. There's no sound deadening. There's nothing from a creature comfort feature. And if you're driving it every day and you're not 16 years old again, you kind of want something that has some sound deadening in it. So
it's more refined.
It's a refined enthusiast car. It's still light years lighter on its feet than a current generation GTI. And I honestly think the Mark III was the peak styling of I think this is one of the most beautiful eras of Volkswagen products. The other thing that's really fun about them is there's so much interchangeability. So like if you're a USDM guy, you can put a Jetta front end on your Golf and vice versa. There's so many Euro spec parts, which obviously this one already has, but like you could get the smoked, Euro spec Golf headlights. You can get grills that have, fog lights mounted in them, and just so much. Like there used to be like a huge catalog like this thick called Tuning Zubahor, and it was just full of accessories for Mark III than many other makes and models. But this is a car that you can't really look at it from a price paid standpoint. It's just fun money. You get something kind of neat. It looks great. It's a wagon. It's a Euro spec wagon. There's hardly any of them here. I think it is extremely handsome. I mean, that is a good looking car. And as far as the I don't know what engine this have in it, if it's it's a 2 liter, it's 2 liter 8 valve. It's the same one we got. Where is it? It's a
1.6 according to the.
Oh, okay. So it's a smaller version of the motor we got, which is kind of pathetic actually. But and because you're talking about the fact that it's only $7,000 for, which is not that different from what you'd pay for like a really nicely preserved Mark III. I hope the next owner is just putting a VR6 in it, lowering it a little bit. And you know what? It doesn't matter that it's a Euro spec car. It's going to be very easy to do that swap in your garage or in any number of Volkswagen tuner shops. And it's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to get a ton of love at any Euro spec car show of your choosing. And it's going to be really fun to pull up, to the the dock on Martha's Vineyard in your Henry Lloyd edition, and ask how many people actually know who Henry Lloyd is, and just feel really, really pompous in your Euro spec Golf wagon. So I think for the price paid, what the hell?
Jeff, you're not going to the yachting dock in this car. You're going to the VW. You're going to the VW show, and everybody's gonna be oohing on over you because you have a rare import Mark III wagon. That's what this is what it's all about with this car.
Look at that. It's got the tow hitch.
It does, but I don't care. You're not going to tow your boat with this car, Jeff. The person who bought this, they're going to the German VW car show on the weekends with this thing. Because it's so. You're going to be the only person there that has one, and you're probably going to go to a lot of other shows, and you're going to be the only person that has one of these things. It's the uniqueness, as we've talked about in the past. The VW community, the collector community for VW, is pretty hardcore about their stuff. They're really into the outside the box, I think it'd be really fun if this thing, if someone dropped like a VR6 in this thing. I think it would
Oh, it'd
be
be
one. I think
perfect.
it would be one of the cool. It would be really, really cool. And keep it as is, like a sleeper model. Yeah, like
Yeah.
don't drop it. Don't keep the same wheels. Here's a sleeper model. I love wagons. As I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, my wife and I just had a baby, and my wife needs a new car, and there was a part of me that kind of said like, we don't need a new car. She can have my truck and I can get a really fun wagon,
Right. Yep.
It's so I love that you brought the wagons tonight. But yeah, so I mean, I kind of defer to you on this one because you're the VW expert. But this is a really unique car. It's a Euro spec. It's a limited edition. It's got some little neat features, and for the price, I mean, under $7,000 for this vehicle. I mean, that's a heck of a deal. The person who bought this car is going to walk away really happy with it.
I think so. And the condition looks good. I mean, it looks
Yeah.
very clean. And what I love about it is just like you said, a little Easter eggs of the year, like this right here. So this shows you it's got the rear fog light, which was something they kind of like deliberately deleted from all the US spec car. That's got the side markers in the fender, which interesting
Yeah.
little fun fact, the 1994 Jetta, the very first run of the Mark III, actually had the Euro spec fender with a little Wolfsburg logo in place of the turn signal. So they were you could, if you find a 94 Jetta, you can actually put the turn signals in them pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I have all this useless knowledge about Mark III. So
And,
yeah,
and it's pretty as a wagon. I've never seen a wagon Mark III before, and I'm actually really impressed with the look of it. It looks
it's
like
proportionally good.
Yeah, it has
It's
like a baby Passat wagon vibe going for it.
Yep.
In a neat way.
Yeah, it's got the GTI nose on it.
Yeah.
It's got so the GTI came with these dual chamber headlights. So and obviously these are H4 Euro spec, and it had the GTI had the had the projector beam fog lights like this one has. So it really does have a GTI theme going for it from the front. And to your point, from the back, another cool feature that's got these half red, half smoke tail lights, which was always a desirable kind of OEM upgrade on the Mark IIIs. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Mark III guy, this sort of checks a lot of boxes for you right out of the gate, with the addition of it being a cool, funky Euro spec wagon. So yeah, I think for the money, this is a no-brainer. So anyway, that I thought this was definitely a cool buy. Definitely something you're not going to see every day. That being said, let's keep roaring along here and jump over to. I'm going to save that for last. Next one.
Say that. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to let you drive this because you just said you're looking for a late model wagon. This one makes a lot of sense to me.
I've always been obsessed with the Volvo wagon, from the 850Rs that were raced in the British Touring Car Series to even the current ones that aren't as R, you will say they're the more R design. So this is a 1998 Volvo V70R all-wheel drive Japanese market wagon. So that was a little interesting on this one. This is about 80,000 kilometers, about 50,000 miles on it. You get the turbocharged inline 5 with this, the 4-speed automatic, all-wheel drive, the blue paint, which I'm not crazy about. If there was one kind of setback on this car, the blue paint really doesn't do it for me on this one. It's a Japanese market car. It was sold on Bring a Trailer back a few months ago for $22,000, but the deal fell through. So whoever bought this car this time around got a little bit of a better deal on it, we'll say. And what else was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. In general, positive comments from the BAT Peanut Grit Gallery. I was kind of scratching my head a little about this because I was wondering, like, is this a little too much for and I love these. I love this car. I love these cars, but at the same time, like, this one doesn't move the needle for me. Whereas if you looked at previous ones that are sold on Cars and Bids, for example, a lot lower prices and air quotes better looking cars, especially in that black and that gray. I mean, this one for 18. Just looking at Bring a Trailer right now, you see cars going for 13. You see cars going in the single, just in 5 figures.
I mean, look at this. This literally just sold this week on Cars and Bids.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
And this, I agree with you 100%. Like, as cool as these are, I look at the Bring a Trailer one, I'm kind of like, holy God, that's a lot of money for one of these.
Yeah.
And Yeah.
Yeah,
And
this was a head scratcher, Jeff. I mean, it really.
well, and it's right hand drive, which is always like as it the right hand drive is always a demerit, right? It's always a value killer
Right.
in most cases. In this case, it didn't really stop anyone, the buyer, from
Well,
going for it.
it looks like you had a lot. It looks like if you look at the bids on Bring a Trailer, it looks like there was a bidding war between a couple people.
Hmm.
Like, and as you know,
Oh
like
yeah,
if you get if you get two or three people that really kind of want something, it doesn't matter what it is, you know,
right.
they're gonna go at it. And yeah, it's like this one just I was real. I mean, I if it was in a different color and if it was like an American version, but it would I'd be like, okay, I can maybe see
Yeah,
15, maybe 15, but like this one was the head scratching version, of this for me.
yeah, and the thing is,
Sure.
there's always a lot of. I've always found that a weird thing about the car community
Yeah.
is the emphasis placed on low mileage. So in this
Mm.
case, I'm sure someone's looking at it saying, okay, 80,000 kilometers, 50,000 miles, this is going to be like the lowest mileage one I can find. That to me, that logic applies with you have to have a couple different factors there. So for one, that logic applies on a US spec car,
Hmm.
left-hand drive. That logic applies on any other Euro spec car that was never sold here or like just flat out
Mm.
impossible to find.
Yeah.
So a V70R does not meet either of those criteria because you can find the US spec version all day
Hmm.
long. If you're patient, you can find a low mileage, very well preserved one.
Hmm.
So, I mean, this one just really does confuse me a bit because I
Yeah.
mean, I learned the hard way with a right hand drive car with that E21 I
Right.
had, where I got hosed on the sale price, and like everybody was like, "Hey, great car, but no one wants right hand drive."
Right.
And so that I see that, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, that makes this one even. Like if it was a left hand drive, um, Euro spec, I could see it because now
Yeah.
you're talking about a car very similar, near identical to the US spec. And a lot of them kind of Japan because the Japanese have, very draconian driving laws about how much you can
Hmm.
drive and how many miles before the car is effectively rendered, a write-off. So
Right.
you can find some very cool low mileage
Yeah.
cars in Japan,
And
but
that's why you see all the influx now of JDM vehicles coming into the States.
right. But this one just was, I mean, and I love the V70R. I'm right there with you. This was,
Yeah.
these things had the half Alcantara, half leather
Hmm.
interiors, which were very cool. These cockpits still look modern all these years later. And, a turbo 5-cylinder makes
And
some awesome noise.
Volvos are pretty bomb proof
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
much. Yeah, because yeah, so like as you were talking about, Jeff, like because when you sent me this listing and I read it and I'm going Japanese market wagon, I'm going, why would someone import this?
I
Like
know.
like I like that was the first thing that came to my head was the why. Like
Right.
who's doing this? What's the reason behind it? Are they like that was the head scratcher? Was it someone that lived overseas? Like, we have a lot of service people live over in Japan and they bought this over here and they wanted to bring it back with them. Like, what was the why in doing this? Because I mean, this was when we're gonna. If I know we always kind of do our deal of the day. I mean, this one wouldn't be my deal of the day right off the bat. It earns the John Grabowski head scratcher of the day. The four that
Yeah.
we have,
Yeah. And
and that
yeah.
blue doesn't do it for me.
No, I mean the color, even like your point, really, it's like doesn't even have like the color going for it. Yeah, you mentioned why did someone grab this? Well, a lot of times what happens is if they're over there for like three or four, or they're monitoring the
Mm-hmm.
auction for three or four real cash cows, right? Like a I don't know, a low mileage Pajero or an
Yeah,
Evo or Mark IV Super
yeah.
Turbo, whatever it is, like something that they're going to pay real money for, but maybe still make 20 to
Mm-hmm.
30,000 when it's here. A lot of times they'll be like, okay, I've got like another room on the ship. Let me grab something cheap, some kind of like
But
like
Yeah, I get that. At the same time, it's like there's so many other JDME products that you could get on the cheap that you bring over here.
Oh, 100%. So, I mean, this one, I think someone just looked at the mileage and said, I bet I can get someone to bid on this because it's a low mileage R spec. But the funny thing about
But
it,
how low but we're talking 50,000. We're talking 50,000 miles. Like how
yeah,
low have we crossed the Mendoza line of low mileage?
well, low mileage is still, I think, well below 50,000. I think 30,000 is sort of the cutoff.
Right.
And in this case, someone is taking a chance that, it's still lowish compared to what most of them have on it.
Right. But, yeah. You're going to see a lot of upper 75,000 miles plus kind of thing.
My biggest issue is that these have not risen to the point of collectability like other Volvo as a brand is kind of, it really takes a very special car to net a high sale price. So I feel like the first time this went up, the winning bidder was probably like, holy shit, this was a bad idea. And
what did I do?
They're like, hey, keep my money. I'm not that interested.
I'll pass.
In it. Yeah. But yeah, so this one definitely not a good value. If you're looking for one of these, you can certainly find them for far less money without too much effort.
Right.
So certainly not knocking the merits of the car, but definitely not a great value. So that said, we'll go on to our final car, which was definitely the high watermark for sale price. This is a 2011 CTS-V wagon. Went for 70 grand. It's modified. It has a 6-speed manual, very low miles, presents extremely well. And the modifications were significant. They were, largely under the hood. So you're talking about significant engine work as it relates to upgraded camshafts, ported and polished cylinder heads and supercharger and aftermarket intakes, among other improvements. And certainly has the usual, bag of tricks that Cadillac threw at this thing, such as magnetic ride control and a limited slip. So, to me, the CTS-V is just, I think these are one of the best cars GM has made in the last 30 years. This was, the CTS was kind of like the non-V-spec CTSs are pretty terrible. Like they've not aged well, but
no, they haven't.
The V-specs with the body kit, the larger wheels, the aero enhancements, and that chrome grille, which I kind of hated when it first came out. It's really grown on me, the grille insert in the lower front valence. These really are like this was such an aggressive design that it kind of needed all this other stuff thrown at it to really make it look really good. So I was always a huge fan, even just from a styling standpoint. Like the V-spec really took the CTS to where it should have been. And then obviously the powertrain in these cars, it's I think from what I know, it's fairly robust. It takes a lot of abuse.
They do.
And who's going to ever complain about the combination of a manual gearbox, supercharged V8 wagon? It's a somewhat unrepeatable car, and one that I don't think we're ever going to see again. I don't think you're ever going to see a 3-pedal wagon with a supercharged V8. It's just not going to happen, which is why if you're looking at a car from our list tonight that you could qualify as an investment, I think a CTS-V is I don't know about this one being modified, but I think a version 1 is always going to be a smart buy if you can find one kind of under the radar. But regardless, even just from a driving enjoyment perspective, and final thought, and I'll turn it over to you. That what I'm curious about this one too, in terms of the price paid, with the indicated mileage of 46,000 miles. I wonder. This is a car I could see you enjoy driving it as is, but I wonder if you take it back to stock and just hold it for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you're sitting on a 48,000 mile CTS-V with no mods. I don't know if it's possible to pull that off, but it's an intriguing thought. What about you?
Yeah, I wish I had a notepad next to me, because you brought up a lot of great points I want to jump off of, but. And I'll see, and I'll try to do it by memory alone, but my brain's a little drained this evening. But first off, it's it's just a crazy concept that the fact there's a Cadillac wagon. You take a Cadillac wagon, which that doesn't happen. You throw a 6-speed into it, and then you throw a bonkers motor into it. This is kind of like the first car we talked about, the AMG. This is almost like the American version of an AMG product, of a luxury bonker station wagon. And this was during that time period where GM was like, hey, let's just throw like that. I'm trying to think the exact time, but maybe that 7-year window where it's like, hey, let's just throw ridiculous motors into things and see what happens. And we'll do it. And price wise, I think this is a pretty good deal. I mean, if you look at what these go for on Bring a Trailer, you're looking at 80, 70,000, 93,000, so absolutely crazy, bonkers, wild. The one thing that kind of scares me is the mods, Jeff. There's a lot of internal work. This isn't like bolt-on stuff like, hey, we bolted on, a different exhaust, or we bolted on, air filter, or I mean, this is some really heavy duty type stuff. I mean, we're talking about, let's see, camshaft, CNC ported cylinder heads, revised spring valves, all that sort of stuff. So it's like, this was made to someone's kind of spec. This was whoever did this, kind of made this their spec. And I wonder if, this kind of impacted sale price. Modded cars are, they're a tricky area. They're a really tricky area. I mean, if it's like something that's kind of factory blessed, or, that's put together, okay, it goes. But like something that someone kind of does on their own to their spec is a little bit scary. I mean, there's an element of me that's like, you could be driving this car and all of a sudden it's going to blow up on you.
Right.
But I did listen to the video of this thing, and it was wild. I was fine because I've been feeding my newborn son late at night, and I found when you're, as Jeff, being a dad, and when you're feeding your kid at midnight, you just throw whatever's on TV just for the hell of it to occupy yourself while you're feeding and burping. And we found the NHRA channel on one of our streaming services, and we're watching like the old drag racing footage. And when you hear this thing start up, it's like listening to some drag car kind of at the line, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I mean, there's a part of me that really loves this car if it was stock. If the fact that it's modded so much, if I'm a buyer, kind of turns me away from it. But like, as you mentioned, Jeff, if you were able to kind of revert this to stock or somewhat stock, and you sit on this, you're looking at a heck of it, something you can keep for down the road, because this is kind of a rare car. They're not gonna, as you mentioned, they're not gonna make these again. Cadillac's not gonna make another wild station wagon. Everything is, we know nowadays, going to SUVs and crossovers. This came on the Sigma 2 platform, which was kind of one of the last rear-wheel drive, hey, let's shove it, we can shove a big motor in it, and it's kind of a state-of-the-art thing, not a boat anymore. So you're getting if you're buying this, you're getting like a collector piece, but also a kind of a risky collector piece in how modified it is. And I hope you're kind of happy with what's been done to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think those are all great points. And it's not that anyone here is anti-mod.
No, we're not. No.
It's just I think it's an impressive number for a car that, to your point, doesn't just have simple bolt-on modifications, and that, like, on a much different scale, obviously. But that S6 I have, I struggle with that because, like, that's a car that responds really well to modifications like chip tuning and upgraded turbo, like stuff that really, there's a wide and vast aftermarket, and I'm just like. But I did put an exhaust on it, and I'm lugging around the old cats and the full exhaust, and it's a pain in the ass. But my thought is, if I do go to sell that, I want to say to someone like, all you got to do is if you want a bone stock Virgin S6, you just have to put this exhaust back on it, and you're good to go. So I think in the seller's case, that they're very lucky, not very lucky. This car would have sold well regardless, but they're fortunate they're the buyer out there who either really like the mods,
Yeah.
or who knows what I think would be the smart play, which is to demod it. Like, don't ever drive it, don't ever feel it with all that power. Just take the mods off and hold on to it for 5 years, because I bet you'd see a return of 20% or better if it still has under 50,000 miles on it, and it presents as a bone stock CTS-V 6-speed. It just that to me is the smart money on this one. But it could also be someone who's like, I don't care, I want to drive something with over 600 horsepower, and I'm not ever going to sell it, so big deal.
Two things. Like, part of me, going back to almost like the question about the Volvo, it's the why question. So, like, the nice part about GM products is that there's such a huge aftermarket modifying community. That's, the iconic motor has always been the Chevy small block, or GM small blocks in general, about how there's such a huge community that, you can modify them, you can do anything to these cars. So it's, but like, part of me is like, why? It's almost like, why would you, like, I understand people modifying Camaros, Corvettes, but like something like this, I'm kind of like, what's the reason doing it? Are you doing it for you? What's the purpose in doing it? And the seller and the buyer, I don't think they're that concerned. I just kind of went through their auction wins. If this thing blows up on them 3 months from now, I don't think I don't think they're hurting. I don't think it's going to be an issue for them. Like, I don't think they're going to be stuck on the side of the road, no car for the next few weeks.
Oh yeah. Well, you're buying Ferrari luggage.
yeah. You've bought 2 360 Mazdas, you're doing okay. I wouldn't, I'm not going to feel bad for the winner here if this thing blows up on the side,
Yeah, 20 grand for a graduate. Yeah, you've got money to blow.
But I mean, it's a really cool car. I mean, because they're so wacky and different. I mean, that's part of. I mean, I'm always loyal to GM products. Don't get me wrong. I will admit it, but like, it's wacky and different. I like it.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said. I find I like looking at the S6 a lot, because it's like, wagons are just very handsome cars to begin with. The design just works, and then when you throw in the fact that it's quicker than a lot of things on the road, it's really just it's a really yin and yang combination that's got a lot of appeal. So I actually am going to go ahead and choose the Caddy as my choice for the week. Which is a little bit of a curveball, because I'm normally not a fan of modified cars, but I like to think about which car has the most future potential for ROI. And I've always thought this car just commanded a respect among enthusiasts. Like, whenever they come up for auction, people are always very excited about them. There's it's like no price paid is too much. So I think the overwhelming enthusiast community support for these just bodes really well for it. It's the wow factor that the Volvo doesn't have.
Right.
That even the E63,
really?
While it's appreciated, I don't think there's quite.
It's not collector.
Not yet, at least, and also to some extent, again, Mercedes has been really like churning out the AMG cars at a higher level than ever seen before. So there's kind of like this expectation. Yeah, sure, Mercedes, you're going to make a fast wagon, right? You're going to keep doing it. Yep. Whereas, again, Cadillac this was like the 1 in a million shot that they even made this car.
Right.
So I just think it's a great candidate for investing in right now. What about you?
You actually kind of won me over, because if you were going to toss it to me right before you made your comments, Jeff, I was going to say the Mercedes. But your comments right there kind of sold me on the CTS-V wagon. That collectability factor of it. As you said, you hit it perfectly on the head when you said, we all know Mercedes is continue to make AMG wagons for the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
We can if we're doing this 3 years from now, we can probably go on the Mercedes website and we can spec an AMG wagon on there. But this Cadillac, we're not getting this again. This is gone. They made them all. And if you have one now, hold on to it. It's gonna continue up in value because you're not gonna see it again. It was here, it's gone, it's bonkers, it's wild, and it's a really neat car. I mean, my only kind of caveat is how modded this is, but maybe to some people it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think you're right. And also perhaps you're thinking too, it's a GM product underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to rebuild it, I can go buy GM components and I can take it to any machine shop in the area to make the necessary repairs. So yeah, all right.
I was trying to see if you can buy an LSA. You can buy it. I think you might be able to buy an LSA crate motor, or you can buy a G. I think you can buy I don't know. Someone's out there probably like, no, you can't. Some GM expert, but it looks like you can. Yeah, it looks like you can buy for like, if you have the money, you can buy an LSA engine. So if this thing blows to smithereens, you can do it.
Go get another one.
Yeah, I don't know if you can really buy an AMG. If not, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So.
Well, and that's just it too. I mean, if you talk about your labor rates, you can probably make out a little better at the GM dealer than you can at the Mercedes shop. So
and there's enough independent people that work in GM shops that if you went to them, you could be like, hey, can you do this to me? You're probably still paying pretty good rates.
Yeah, right. All right, John, this was another, we did it. We got through 4 cars in our normal time. So kudos to you. I just want to say, I listen, we are not by any means a big draw on YouTube, but I do notice we're picking up some subscribers each week. So certainly those of you that are watching, we appreciate it. We would welcome your comments and would certainly always welcome you to recommend other cars you'd like to see on here. And last but not least, please, if for nothing else, check out thecommongear.com and see some of the projects we're working on. Our own cars are up there. We're documenting the work behind each one of them and saving our records and invoices. So when it comes time to sell, we can just spit out that URL and capture all that data. But feel free to create a free account, start storing your own updates, which via our access controls, you can either share freely or lock down and just keep for your own edification. But whatever you choose, check out thecommongear.com today and come back next week where we'll be here with yet another podcast talking about 3 notable finds from the local auction circuit. Jonathan, thank you as always, and I will see you next week.
Thanks, Jeff. See you later.